Hello, everyone, and welcome to Council Rock Living. I'm your host, Paul Rosso. Council Rock Living is a community podcast that introduces you to the people, organizations, and stories that help make the Council Rock area such a wonderful place to live. My hope is that each episode helps you discover someone new, learn something interesting, and feel even more connected to your local community. Today, I'm joined by Wayne Lahr, Director of the Free Library of Northampton Township. Libraries have changed tremendously over the years, becoming vibrant community centers that offer far more than just books. Today, we're going to learn more about the Northampton Library, the many programs and resources it offers, and the important role it plays in serving residents throughout our area. Wayne, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
Great. So, Wayne, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you became involved with the Northampton Library.
Out of college, I became a music teacher. My undergrad was in music education. I taught all levels of music, instrumental music from grades 4 through 12, including some general music mixed in. In that time as a teacher, you're highly encouraged to move on to your master's degree. And it took me a few years to decide what I wanted to do. And I finally leveled on getting my master's in library science.
Okay.
I decided to hit up Drexel, which at the time was ranked the #1 program in the country. And while I was teaching, I attended Drexel for 4.5 years and pursued my master's in library science. And once I had that, I then left teaching music and went to becoming a high school library and media specialist in Montgomery County. After a few years there, 8 years, I decided I was finished with the teaching world and decided to try public libraries. I moved on to become a director of a small public library in Berks County. And then there was an opening for a branch manager position in the Bucks County Free Library up at Percy. And that was 3 miles from my home instead of 33 miles to Berks County. And it was a no-brainer. So I moved to becoming the branch manager at Percy. I was there for 5.5 years. Then moved to Quakertown for about 8 months. And in that time, I began searching for my new position, which was going to be either a branch manager at a larger system library or another director position. I began looking in Colorado because they had the most openings that I was interested in at the time. And then I started finding some openings in Pennsylvania as well. And that led me to interview number 17 of that 3-month period. And that was with Northampton Township Administration. And then they asked me to come back for a second interview. And then they offered me the position here at Free Library of Northampton Township. So in January of 2022, I began my last career step here as a director at the Free Library of Northampton Township, currently in year 5.
All right, excellent. So for someone who hasn't visited the library recently, what do you think would surprise them the most about it?
I would say the first thing that came to mind would be the amount of materials which are now digital and available online from the comfort of your home or your car or your phone, wherever that is. That's the first thing. And then the second one is probably an understanding that today's public libraries are not like they used to be 10 to 20 years ago. And you probably won't get shushed when you come into a public library anymore. We have a lot of people that work from the library, their base of operations. They take phone calls while they're at their desks and they communicate online a lot. And those things all seem to fit into the vibrant atmosphere that happens here at the library.
It does seem like it changed a lot. I worked at the Temple Library when I went to Temple years ago, and it seems very different today when I walk in the library. I know the library, the primary job there is to borrow books. How has that changed over the years?
That's a great question and something to look back at. I think a long answer might be the advent or the inventing of ebooks. First one was created in 1971 in the Project Gutenberg, and it was the digital version of the Declaration of Independence. By 2010s, ebook sales had surpassed those of paperbacks and hardcovers together.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I think, and then that really peaked during COVID when people didn't have access to get to the library physically, number of ebooks and e-audiobooks, which are, again, audiobooks that are delivered in a digital format that you can listen to through your phone or any other device, computer or tablet as well. All those things had a huge uptick in use during COVID. Everything's squared off a little bit now comparing print and e-materials, but you also have e-magazines and e-newspapers, which are now available.
Okay.
All of them are available for free through most library facilities. I think the other way libraries have changed is the programming and services that are now provided by many public libraries. So just to list a few, children's literacy programs and story times are still huge. A lot of libraries focus on children's literacy as a core value to what they present and offer entertainment and educational programs provided for adults. I think we have more than close to 100 programs scheduled for adults in 2026, and they're all entertainment and or some kind of educational program. Okay. We offer computer classes, tutoring, English as a second language, and citizenship classes are offered in many libraries. Passport and notary services are offered. Services for those with impairments and disabilities are provided through the Office of Commonwealth Libraries. It's called LAMP, Library of Accessible Media for Pennsylvanians. There are Library of Things collections. So they could be anything that you could think of could end up being in a library collection and being borrowable. Sometimes it really started with like tools for around the house, gardening materials, auto materials, and now it's really shifted into a lot of different things. CD players, for instance, not many people have them anymore, but if you go to your public library, there's a good chance that a CD player could be one of those things that you can borrow through a Library of Things collections. And then lastly, facility settings are vastly, the needs by the public for what your facility offers are vastly different than they used to be. Group study rooms and quiet places to work are in high demand, where people can take phone calls and have virtual meetings. And I know public libraries are straining to meet those demands currently.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about the children's programs there and what programs you have for families, especially like during the summer.
Yep. So year round, we offer at least 2 story times, depending on staffing. We have a baby story time and a family story time during the week. And then we also have every other weekend on Saturday mornings, we offer the same family story times. There's also tons of other programming throughout the year, whether it's Lego block building, whether they're like arts and crafts for kids, whether they're chess clubs, no matter what, there's tons of programming throughout the year. But summertime is when we really kick it up a notch because we're really trying to create an atmosphere where kids have incentives to continue reading over the summer to fill that gap between school years. So what we do here, and many of the rest of the public libraries in the country are involved in a summer reading program where they offer incentives for kids to read. Ours is you come in, you pick up a reading log, you track 20 minutes a day for 5 days each week, and then you can come in and get a small incentive at the library by bringing your reading card back. In addition, I think our program runs from June 20 to August 15. And in that time period, we have 68 programs that are designed specifically for summer reading program, or summer quest, as we call it. Tuesday nights are our specialty. Tuesday nights, we have family program. This past week, we had science heroes who have a fun way of presenting science concepts to kids. So they were here. And then next week on the 7th, we have the New Jersey Snake Man is back, and he usually brings his monster boa python amongst things. That's a very popular program. Sometimes
sure
200 to 300 people for that program.
Wow.
So those are some of the things that we're doing for kids, literacy, and family programming all throughout the year.
Okay. So a couple things I'm thinking of here. One is you mentioned about adult programming. Is all that free or is there charges for that?
All the programming that we offer here at the library is free for people to come in and avail themselves at, and they can be from the township, they can be a township resident, or they can be anybody in the county. Most often public libraries will do that. In our case, public tax dollars support the library in its majority. We get a small amount of state money, but really it's 1% to 2% of our budget. The rest is really from Northampton Township taxes, to the event that there's, I think for a house assessed at $40,000, which I think is like the average assessment, that family will pay less than $50, or that household will pay less than $50 a year of their taxes come to the library to support the programming that happens here.
So can you explain that a little more as far as Northampton Township Library? I know it's separate than the Bucks County Library System, although
Sure.
there's some kind of separation, but not a full separation.
Throughout Pennsylvania, there's about 52 library districts. And a district is a collection of libraries, and ours just happens to match the county. So in here, it's the Bucks County Library District, which incorporates 18 public libraries in the county. All of them are individual. They have their own board, except for the Bucks County Free Library. They have 7 branches. So that means that 12 of the 18 all have their own separate boards leading libraries. Some of them are advisory boards like we have here in Northampton Township, and others are governing boards that actually hire the director, et cetera, and make a lot of decisions.
Okay. And how has technology changed the way people use the library?
I would say first and foremost, that change really started happening as public computers became a thing. And then people that couldn't afford public computers in their homes, the libraries tried to bridge that gap and meet the need. At the time, it was really called the digital divide. It's where it started breaking up between what people had economically available to them and what they could have in their house compared to those who couldn't afford it. So libraries really tried to step in the gap. And we started with personal computers where libraries would have those. So cardholders could come in and use those computers at their heart's content. And then as public computers became much more common in the household, that move has shifted, and then it went to internet access. So Wi-Fi was a big deal in libraries, having it extended into parking lots so people could use it when we're closed. That was a big deal. And that came into play really before the concept of unlimited data plans became available. But I think what we've seen here is even with the more cost efficiency of unlimited data plans and those costs coming down so they're more affordable, the library is still seeing their Wi-Fi usage tick up a little bit every year. So that's my first place. And then I would say the other way, again, refers back to all the materials that are available digitally online. So I've talked a little bit about some of the things that we offer: ebooks, e-audiobooks, e-magazines, e-newspapers, but there's also databases. So the Commonwealth, through the public library subsidy, funds what is called Power Library. And everybody who has a public library card or kids in public schools have free access to Power Library, which is a vast amount of databases that meet the needs of information at all different levels, from elementary school all the way through high school and adulthood. And the one thing I like to point out all the time is that there are 2 really cool databases in there. One's called Auto Repair Resources, and the other one's called Small Engine Repair Resources. And they're chock full. You can do a search for your vehicle and find out the electric plans, designs, and how things are put together in your car. And it features a ton of other information that's all free using the Power Library website.
Okay, great. And also for borrowing books, there's a lot of different technology today for that. Also, can you explain that as far as renewing things?
Sure, yeah. First, there's a variety of genres or formats that you can borrow. You can borrow regular physical books. We still have books on CD. So if your car or you have a CD player that you like to listen to books being read to you, we still have tons of those, hundreds of those still in the collection. And then, of course, the ebooks that we've already talked about. But you had asked, the renewal process. Yeah. One of the new things that we offered starting in March of 2025 was an automatic renewal process. Typically, most of the items in Bucks County libraries are available for 3 weeks at a time, and they can be renewed 2 times. But in the past, the borrower always had to make those renewals themselves, manually, either online or coming into the library or calling. Now we've moved to a system where those renewals happen automatically. So if I have a book that's due today and nobody else wants it, last night at 9 o'clock, it was renewed automatically through the system. So I don't have to worry about it. And then I get an email telling me this was renewed. Or if I have something that's out that I borrowed that is not eligible to be renewed, it has a red sign that says not renewed, which
Okay.
means I need to renew. I need to come in. Things that would not eligible for renewal, the number one thing would be if someone else has a hold on that product, then it's not eligible for renewal.
Okay. And how does someone go about getting a library card?
Number one, you can come into the library. You will have to do that to get a physical library card at one point or another. You can apply for an online card. It's temporary and it has limited features. You can borrow physical items and place holds on physical items, but that's all it gives you the opportunity to do. Second, you have to come back into the library is when you should go to the counter, say, here's my online application or library card number for online, give that to them and transfer it into a physical card. And that can happen in any of the county libraries.
Okay. So, Wayne, how did libraries go from just basically borrowing of books to all this community activities that go on there? How did that evolve?
I'm not sure I have an answer to how it evolved, but I can tell you that it has evolved to the point where I had mentioned before about the group study rooms, those rooms that are available and in high demand. There are also rooms that many libraries have that you can reserve and schedule a reservation for. In some cases, you have to pay for those rooms. In other cases, you don't.
Okay.
So in our library, we have 3 rooms that are reservable. You can go to the website, follow the instructions, and place a request to reserve a room. If you're a nonprofit organization with a 501c3, or if you're a community group, like we have groups of ladies that like to come in and play games in the afternoon, or
Okay.
Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Council Rock sports boosters organizations, you can always borrow a room once a month for free.
Okay.
So, and then for-profit businesses that want to borrow it to present something to the public, they would pay to borrow to rent the room for a specific period of time.
Yeah. I understand that there's a lot of tutoring going on there also at the library.
Yep, throughout the school year, from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on, the place starts loading up between 3 and 6 with tons of tutors, kids getting tutored. And this is when our group study rooms are maxed. High school kids love coming in and using the group study rooms to study as a group. There are whiteboards in there. They use those all the time with markers and erasers. But yeah, that's a busy time for us. And even as we get to the end of the school year and into the summer, I still walk around at that period of time and there are still tutors here, just not as many. But there's kids getting summer tutoring and they meet here at the library.
Okay, great. And I understand the library is also an emergency facility people can use
Yes, I think
if
when it was
they lose power or something like that.
yeah, I think when it was renovated in 2005, the township administration decided to make it an emergency location. So if there's something happening where there's no electricity or whatever the variety of reasons could be, they would call and make the library a temporary place of emergency relocation. You have like 40 plus Army cot beds in case people need to spend the night. It's in the community room. There's a small kitchenette there and bathroom availability while being separated from the rest of the library. So that's something that is available. In my 5 years, it hasn't yet been used for that purpose, but I do know of it being used, I think, twice before my arrival.
Okay, great. And what kind of volunteer opportunities are available at the library for anybody who wants to volunteer and help out?
So the easy thing is you can submit an application to be a volunteer. At this point, I don't think we're taking new adult volunteers, but keeping the application on hand for when someone decides that they're finished with their volunteering, then we can easily fill that position. And then teens that attend Council Rock School District have a requirement for community service annually or before they graduate. And we have a huge teen volunteer program set up where they can come in and do that. They do a lot of volunteering over the summertime for the programs and stuff like that, but also throughout the year they do that. I think between the adults and the teens, we average more than 3,000 hours a year of volunteer work here at the library, which is an awesome way for people to give back to their community in some way.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about the Friends of the Library?
Sure. The Friends of the Library is the Friends of the Free Library of Northampton Township is a nonprofit organization that, one, they run a book sale, a used book sale in the library. They take lots of donations and they resell them to people that are interested in reading those titles. They're organized in a really small store manner, and all that money that is provided through the year's book sale comes back to the library in some way. So, for instance, last year when we had the new website built, the Friends organization paid for the majority of the new website.
Okay.
We have some new children's toys coming in the next couple of weeks. They paid for those as well. The other idea is that we have a museum pass program here at the library. There are a few libraries in the county that offer museum passes. Ours is set up a little differently than the others in that you have to be a family level member of the Friends group in order to access the passes. So that's a $20 annual fee to belong to that group and have access to our museum passes. But honestly, once you use it at one museum, you've more than made up for the cost of that for the whole year. And
Sure.
you still can use the other, we have 21 passes. You can use them throughout the year as many times as you like for the same cost. So that's what, and all that money also goes to the Friends group, and that's how they can afford to provide things for the library when they're needed.
Okay, great. So Wayne, I'm sure there's a lot of things coming up. So what are you most excited about for the future of the library, especially the Northampton Free Library?
I've got a great library board of advisory members here, a bunch of thinkers, people that like to solve problems, and a passion for providing great library service to the residents of our community. Since I've been here, we did a strategic plan that was approved by the Board of Supervisors in 2023, and we're now coming to the end of that first 3 years of the strategic plan. We're reviewing those 4 pillars and deciding looking to see what we've hit, what we haven't hit, and then in the fall when we reconvene for meetings, we'll start talking about how we want to rewrite for the next 2 or 3 or 4 year plan starting in 2027. And I think one of the most exciting pieces of this is that we had an architect study done, study regarding what we can do with the library facility and the grounds to get better use out of them for what the customers and patrons now demand. Again, rooms, and I've got a great big yard outside of my office window that is unused and untapped programming and just chill out potential. So we have plans in place that would take care of all of those things. So we're really trying to figure out how to move forward with that as well.
Okay, great. And before we wrap up, Wayne, I'd like to ask every guest the same question. What's one thing you'd like everyone listening to remember from our conversation today?
That even though I mentioned a ton of things, and I talked about the less than $50 a year that each household pays to support the library, I still haven't touched on all of it. Everything that we offer is really pretty much free. The only time you have to pay is if you don't return materials on time. And even that's a paltry little bit. Printing and copying, you pay for those things. But other than that, there's nothing in the library that you need to pay for to use. You've already paid through your tax dollars, and you should take advantage of the free programming that we offer, both adults and children. We started looking for ways to try and meet needs of teens more often, other than volunteering and study rooms. And right now, teens seem to be latched on to crafting or little art clubs.
Okay.
So we've started incorporating some of those, and right now because we supply materials, can only supply so many. So right now, those classes are pretty much maxed out as well. So those are good things, but I would say you need to check out our brand new website. We launched in September of last year.
And what's the website address?
freelibrarynt.org. It's really simple. freelibrarynt.org. And in that process, you'll also be able to see the huge branding project that we came to, a new logo, color scheme, all that good stuff for branding. And we're looking forward to incorporating all those things as we move forward.
Okay, terrific. Is there anything else that we haven't covered yet that you want to bring up?
I think you nailed it all. I think I don't have anything else to talk about unless somebody wants to come in and ask questions.
Yeah.
Always open.
Okay, great. And my understanding is you guys are open to ideas as far as what books, if someone's looking for a book to add to your collection, or like you said, mentioned a lot of the groups too.
Yeah, 2 things. We have a suggested purchase. Again, it's on the website under services. You can find it there. Just click on it and complete a form and submit it. If we don't have it in the entire county, that's an option, and it has to be relatively new as well. And then the other option for older materials is that we offer an interlibrary loan program as well, which we're actually get books from all over the country if they need to be found for something that someone doesn't have in the county already.
Okay, great. Wayne, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I appreciate your sharing more about the Free Library of Northampton Township and the important role it plays, especially with all the residents throughout the Council Rock area. And to everyone listening or watching, thank you for joining us today for this episode of Council Rock Living. If you enjoyed today's conversation, I appreciate if you subscribe, follow, and share this podcast with someone who loves our area and loves the library too. Until next time, thanks again for listening, and thanks for helping celebrate the people and stories that make Council Rock such a wonderful place to call home. We'll see you on the next episode of Council Rock Living.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, thanks.